Okay, we had Monday Night Raw, and Raw was as disappointing as the middle of Clash of Champions. As average, I gave that show a rating. Raw was complete trash with only one long-term storyline. The reluctant reminder that we still have to deal with Retribution for probably 2 months before we make them job. That I'm actually excited for, and no Raw Underground. I was like, oh god, we're missing something. It's like, where in the hell is Raw Underground? They usually have that. And it's like, I finally noticed that it's not a ratings grabber, so they cut it off. And plus, the draft will be in a couple months. Well, wouldn't that be obsolete because of the change of wrestlers? And immediately after they said there would be a draft come October, they come around because of the trade by The Miz. Somehow also including Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose. And it's like, these gotta be untouchables if they've been recently traded, like the AJ Styles trade, for like Mustafa Ali, Robert Roode, and Dolph Ziggler. And it's like, what the hell? For one guy? Like, how many. Like, this makes zero sense as it is, and how minimal the roster is, and how lopsided it even is. So I would understand a reason to make a draft to even it out. But if they make an absolute redraft and try to make this a sports crap, I would be absolutely angry. I really feel like WWE is already dropping the ball as it is, actually trying to compult the show into a brand split. Because there's no de facto top guy, and even if they do, it doesn't really help. It's super inconsistent, and it's just trash. It's just trash, in my opinion, man. And that's a sad thing to say, because I really don't mind some of the talent. So we have an opening start with Drew McIntyre's Shink. Yeah, now a sword clash. Sword being unsheathed in his entrance because he's Scottish. I'll try to put a clip of the Blue Ranger from RPM saying that. Yeah, a celebration over literally the men who assisted him on his world title match, even though he's supposed to be secluded as a warrior, Scottish, always getting it done clean by his own self. But he didn't mind a couple of guys that he probably knew for probably a couple of years ago getting him into the business, getting a few shots in. And I would understand the Edge portion of it. Yeah, Christian got punt kicked. You got Big Show that got punt kicked. That was a cool one-off moment. But coming around sulking in the ring, like celebrating for outside assistance from other people to retain your championship over what they suffered, the, don't you think it's a bit heelish? I'm just saying, that's just my opinion. That's like the most heelish bullshit. If that was any other wrestler, that would be babyface. They would be like, I would understand your problem, but never interfere in my world title match again. And like this is supposed to be basically personal, and they ended off such a weaker margin. I thought they were going to celebrate and give him and present him a new world championship after taking out Orton. But Orton said there would be hell to pay, and Randy Orton, there's something to be paid when you cross the Legend Killer. So he comes around taking out his luggage and leaving the arena of somewhat. You'll see later. So that was the segment. Everybody started playing poker as soon as they were backstage, teasing over the fact that Drew McIntyre will have an open challenge because he's a fighting champion. So that was for all I know is they're gonna probably have another match at Hell in a Cell. That's the only reason. Why do you think they were staying backstage? If it wasn't for that one-off moment, and they kept putting them on screen, so you practically knew something bad was gonna happen anyway. That's just my opinion on the matter. I don't really care. This feud overstayed its welcome. I'm not saying that these guys aren't terrible wrestlers against each other. It's just that the conceited notion of why McIntyre even has to even still feud with Orton at this point, and it just doesn't feel that organic to me. It's like Hell in the Cell is just there. It's just a regular match instead of something that's like supposed to be supposedly the final conclusion. And some parts it is, or in some parts 2019. So yeah. Next up we have the Raw Women's Title rematch. So she encloses her rematch clause just the next night on Raw after losing clean. Lit. Zelina Vega was working up the arm this time, modified cross arm breaker. There was a great abdominal stretch, some good kicks over to that elbow, just immediately trying to restrict the Oscar lock. Coming down off that rollout pin again, off the Oscar lock. This time she immediately fights for the rope. Uh, it feels like Zelina Vega did learn a bit better than her other match, but it did end with another Oscar lock for the win. Of course, she still did the ass attacks and a roundhouse kick with a near fall, and it looked like Vega was taking over a bit more of the match than Asuka. But the decent selling, basic finish, tough loss for Vega, and you just have her like overly push over to the women's title picture, and then you have her lose twice in under a week. Well, what's like the fact? What's the benefactor of this? And there's barely any women that look legit other than Charlotte Flair. Or somewhat Becky Lynch, because she main evented WrestleMania. So that has to bring some semblance of legitimacy. And no one cares about Bayley. Mandy cut off her hair. I already hate that already. Lana and Natalya are jobbers. Already, like, nearly half the planet hates Nia Jax. Shayna Baszler already lost her credibility since WrestleMania of this year. And she was supposed to be super pushed. She, like, took out, like, all of the women in the Elimination Chamber. And then she just got relegated as just Nia Jax's love-hate partner, and then they couldn't even compete in their first pay-per-view title defense. Yay, I'm so damn interested in this damn women's division, and I think the draft is going to help. If I were you, I would just make one belt and just make the tag titles more centerpiece to some of the major baby faces or heels. And make them major storylines. Don't just make them regular matches. That's my opinion on the matter. I'm not really enclosed to care. As soon as Lita Vega was leaving the ring, it immediately came from berating from Andrade, calling Angel Garza the weakest link, and then doing his own open challenge. And who would it be? Couldn't be Garza, he's injured. Keith Lee. The match was as weak as you suspected of two guys that are supposedly really good in the ring. It ends off a spirit bomb after some pounces, an exploder suplex, just ragdolling Andrade around. And I wish this would be better off if Keith Lee was just having a winning streak or something. Stop overshooting these guys over to the level. Like, it's good to have like a match against some of the top main eventers, but make that like a rarity. Make that a rarity, or else you're not going to treat this guy legitimately. It's like Shelton Benjamin when he first came to Raw. Immediately, he was pushed up to face off against a Triple H one-on-one for the first time on Raw. When he had that upset win, he started tagging with some of the topper guys, and he was getting pushed more into the up to the top mid-card scene for the Intercontinental Championship, where he beat Chris Jericho. And people started fan-favoriting him because his moveset was cool. He was in a level that was more comfortable for him. And that's practically it. And then he would start getting higher and higher into the part when he was like back in like 2008, 9, he was more for world title scenes. Like, there's build to this, and then you had him like jobbing, like squashing Andrade after he was like supposed to be having matches with Orton, beating him clean on pay-per-view, and then you have him getting DQ finishes against McIntyre. So you made the open challenge feel worthless. as well as berating like your former manager and you job. We also had Murphy talking to uh, Seth Rollins, and Rollins telling him to get dressed up over a certain celebration they will be having, and it involves the King's Court that involves the Mysterio family later in the night. So you'll get to see that, and we have that. Listen, I don't mind the storyline. It's just last time they pulled the Dominic, not your son shit, and then they immediately just an awkward floppy transition into Aaliyah having somewhat some feelings for Murphy, and then he brung up some DMs of happy birthday, and that was it. It was like under 10 texts given, and one was I'm sorry about last time, blah 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 blah, and then happy birthday. Wow, stop the sexing, Murphy. What's going on with you? You gotta control yourself. That's how that's how bad the semblance of telling a story is for the WWE. Even for the senses of long term, they can't even make a wedding segment cool anymore. No wedding segments are that cool in the WWE. The only thing done right was literally Macho Man Randy Savage. We all know that. So, yeah, it ended up with Murphy coming in talking to Rollins over showing such private information, and he didn't even change his clothes. Dominic, Aaliyah was about to leave. I hated Dominic's promo so goddamn much. It hurts my feelings whenever he tries to talk. It's like what he did to her family, what he did to her dad, La Familia, and to the teleprompter, Dominic. Oh, that's how it feels. And it ended up with a backstage brawl with Murphy and Dominic, foreshadowing a match next week. Later in the night. So, yeah, that was the segment. We also had Rey Mysterio and his mother trying to talk to Aaliyah after she was leaving the ring, after she felt insulted again and left. It's like Murphy's not Rollins. Murphy's not Rollins, and it's like I don't care. Next up, we had Lana versus Natalya against Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. We couldn't just take Mandy. We can't just take one attractive chick. I have to deal with Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax on screen time, and we have a dumbass that can't even deal with a sponsor right, and a woman that's been like in the business for like 30 years by. So yes, it was Natalya and Lana versus Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, and this was issued off after they were calling themselves the next the uncrowned women tag team champions, even though they've been jobbing out. Other than that one time they beat Mickey James one-on-one, I think that was Natalya, but that was off a count-out finish. So you guys are just borderline jobbers. That's depressing. So they come around with Adam Pearce issuing that the Riot Squad are already number one contenders, and thinks that Shayna and Shayna and Nia are not here. These are their opponents from SmackDown. So it's Mandy and Dana. Yay! I'm so happy. Kill me now. The match was fine, I guess. If you like split legs, some drop kicks, Dana Brooke thinking that she can sort of do power moves, her without knee pads. A bicycle knee got this match done, or the only move you can only tell from Mandy Rose's moveset. Literally, that was like majority of what I saw even in her match against Shayna Baszler at Summer. I mean, not Shayna Baszler, Sonya Deville at SummerSlam. Bicycle knee. Set up for the table spot. Bicycle knee. That was practically it. We had some face plants. lack of any source of agility, a failure of a shining wizard. Lana cannot wrestle. Lana cannot wrestle. Stick to a valet spot. I don't care if it's a crappy storyline. At least it's giving you stuff to do so you can feel more appealing. You can actually do stuff in the show that doesn't involve you to take a bump. Uh, Come on. Do you really think you and Natalia are going to be even set up legitimately, even if you win the women's belt tag belts? Who is that really to even get over? Not the Iconics. Sadly, not Sasha and Bailey. They were set up as soon as they lost it. They were already taken by the YWC as sore losers, little bitches, and they already were like unlikable in the first place. And oh my god, I forgot who else won it. I mean, yeah, I forgot Alexa and uh, Nikki Cross won it, and then Sasha Banks and Bailey again. And like nobody remembers like a memorable reign involving the women's tag belts, even though it's like a year in existence. That's over a year in existence at this point, and I don't care. So yeah, Dana and Mandy won, and it's so sad I missed the long hair for Mandy. That's just my opinion. But the match was so crap, it was so sloppy, with a basic bicycle knee finish. I wouldn't go back and watch this match, even if you paid me to. So, Aleister Black versus Kevin Owens, one-on-one. This is one of the longer grudge matches on the show, involving an interview in the KO show with literally Kevin Owens, whoever he breathes near, he feuds with. That was the same thing when he was feuding with Rollins. There was no particular reason why they were feuding in the other place. It wasn't even involving the past about the Universal title controversy or anything. And then he gets into tag team feuds involving the other top heels. I think he got laid out by Retribution at one point. Nothing foreclosed that other than Aleister Black that got his face, his eye nearly gouged out by Murphy. But thanks we can't make him still squash him. He turns heel. Wears the dumbass freaking eye patch thing that looks like that headband that Asta wears from Black Clover, coming around looking like an absolute hot topic edgelord, coming around saying that this is my emotional scarring. Whoa, he looks like the big boss. It's a bitch. The match was as meteoric as it get it. I don't like why they changed his music. I thought it was I thought it was a bit corny, but I thought it was pretty catchy. It's a basic song, nice metals music, and his entrance was at least interesting. Now it comes around wearing long tights. He probably gained some weight, so they don't want to show the thighs. Coming around wearing bigger wrist tape and supports a jobber vest with a freaking eye patch. That's how bad he he looks like Paul Burchill if he cuts his wrist. That he probably does at this day. So yeah, it ends off a DQ finish over an accidental elbow to the referee after continuing to attack Kevin Owens over at the ropes. I think there was a drop kick, a running senton for a near fall off Kevin Owens after doing some moves. I think there was a roundhouse kick as soon as Kevin Owens was going for a move. These guys were going outside inside the ring. And yeah, the match ends off with DQ finish, so they're probably going to continue this next week and probably a false count anywhere match or some dumb crap like that. And this just completely was like sour grapes. Because I know these guys like are not going to be pushed up in the main event scene, but I know they're pretty good. They're pretty good wrestlers. So at least give us something with somewhat compelling over the reason why Black wants to face off against fucking Kevin Owens, other than uh he referenced my eye injury. Like I'm not that compelled to watch their matches. And if you're gonna do it off a DQ finish, that was somewhat built up over Kevin Owens taking the win, and then you had their dumbass fight at Raw Underground, and then they do an underwhelming finish that involves a DQ, so this match is going to continue because of terrible circumstances, and I hate that. So, next up we had R-Truth defeating Akira Tozawa and Drew Gulak from SmackDown for the 24/7 championship over a schoolboy. Literally the strongest finishing move when it comes to winning the jobber belt. And it just gets super predictable because it's like you'll face off against a jobber, Tozawa will be there, and then R-Truth will just beat the two jobbers. We had Drew Gulak get pinned by R-Truth after surprising him with Ninja, and there was a note in Japanese and English. I thought that was pretty funny. And it was literally the only thing that got me a bit of a chuckle because R-Truth actually has the ability to be funny. Unlike McIntyre, that I think he thinks he's funny or charismatic. And that's a harsh thing to say, but I'm the viewer. And there's a reason. Just look at your freaking numbers that you're probably gonna inflate. So until somebody makes a crappy work shoot, that we've been in the decline for a few years, but we're still in the top shows because no one's going to waste time watching AEW that much. And we have Dominic Mysterio against Murphy. Please stop pushing Dominic Mysterio in the upper mid card. You could have just made this Rey Mysterio against Murphy. He's already re-signed, right? And he comes around just the match had like one decent move out for a reversal off a bicycle knee, a decent spin out for a DDT, some dumb headlocks. The match was as meh as you can give it for Dominic standards. Then he was attempting to grab a kendo stick for some apparent reason. Then it ends off a schoolboy after Aaliyah was consulting him to stop. It ends off a schoolboy, so Murphy wins. It ends with Dominic arguing with Aaliyah, her younger sister, his younger sister, and it ends up with getting slapped over, calling Aaliyah naive again. So, yeah. Murphy runs off and Aaliyah runs off. And that would be the last time we would speak of that. We also had Hurt Business against Apollo Crews, Ricochet, and Mustafa Ali. And it's so weird, like you make this the top heel faction. You don't show Cedric or anything, except put him in Hurt Business boot camp because he lost against Apollo. Haven't you lost to him more? You lost him 3 times, especially on pay-per-view, and then you lose to Mustafa Ali. That's just DJZ. And now he's on WWE and he changes his look entirely. I thought he's different from the guy I saw in Impact. We got some drop kicks and power moves, some counters. We got 2 topes, but especially one off Ricochet, an apron Rana. It ends off a shooting star press off from Safa. I think it was a 450 splash from Ali to MVP for the finish. So that was practically it. Yeah, it was a 450 splash. Why? Why have them lose clean? Especially if they're supposed to be treated as like probably the protectors of Raw over Retribution for the right pay. And I don't mind that concept. I think that's cool. Makes them feel more legitimate. I think they're like the best heel faction I've seen in a minute. But you don't have them facing off against lower card guys. Especially if you have the supposed leader of the babyface group lose to Lashley twice on 2 different pay-per-views. So what part of that they were fret in any way, other than MVP loses to like most of the midgets that he wrestles against? And Cedric already has a win up against Ricochet. They have no reason to still do 6-man tags. I don't mind the segment involving catering and Lashley taking his seat and his food. But if you show that they're enticingly intimidating, they lose from Mustafa Ali. There's a problem, and I don't want to see that consistently, or else they'll just be put as a jobber team. You have them show legitimate. They win most of their matches unless something entirely goes wrong or somebody interferes. That's my opinion on the matter. Other than that, they're complete badasses. MVP is a captivating talker, and he's a good worker. Lashley is legitimate. Just make sure he doesn't talk that often unless it's important. And Shelton is also a good worker. Just make sure MVP talks. And just make sure you form over the accolades a lot more. Reference more of what Lashley does in Bellator, and reference more of like uh Shelton's college stuff, and of course his accolades he did in the past in WWE. So they can be formed as like seasoned veterans and also athletic marbles and why they should be so feared in WWE. I want to see a group like this actually succeed because these are literally my three favorite black wrestlers in the WWE. So I want them to perform well. I want them to be top heels. I want these guys to be legitimate. I don't think they're an evolution in any way, but I want them to be more legitimate, and that's what WWE is lacking in actually making top guys. We also had a vignette off Retribution before we even hit up the main event. It's like they give us contracts, and and that's not gonna change us at all. We're still taking over the WWE. You guys do this for greed. We're doing this for ourselves. Sign here, sign here, sign here, and here. It's what? Retribution is the most brain dead faction. If you know how jobber you are to have your own peers backstage, legit laugh at the concept of you, Mad Max, incest, inbred wearing jobbers that have no sake of like any like reason to even be pushed. It makes no sense. You have like cum droplets and some of you guys look wearing some Party City face paint and wearing crappy masks that you probably take off Mia Yim's dungeon. I don't care. This is so bad. This is so bad. It should be illegal. It should be illegal. Other than that, it was so crappy. I saw like Disco Inferno on the thing. Go ahead and listen to him has great takes. I heard Conan as well. It's like, why did you take the guys that were actually getting squandered in their pushes? Could have been Ryback or CM Punk or some. It's like I would understand on Ryback's and Wade Barrett or somebody that's just getting undervalued under the guys that are in that could get contracts or something. But I don't think they're gonna do Ryback because he said WWE would be better off without Vince McMahon or Vince McMahon dead. I don't know how it went. That's what I've been hearing on some news. And seeing to the storylines we have right now in Retribution faction, I would understand. And I'm not, I'm not, I'm not wishing upon any death on anybody. But our main event was Drew McIntyre versus the surprise opponent, Robert Roode returns to Monday Night Raw after like what 8 month absence. Uh, COVID could do a hell of a thing, even keep you in Canada for a minute. But it's good to see Robert Roode back. His hair got a bit longer, still keeping well physiqued, wearing white wrist tape this time, and his hair getting frizzy in the middle of the match. So yes, it's Robert Roode. It's Roode. So the match was good. I'll admit it. The match was good. Decent four close finishes, finger four leg locks, decent hip tosses. That Alabama slam that I miss McIntyre doing, that he hasn't done since he was a heel, went off for a near fall. A decent Northern Light suplex into a bridge with a kick out. And as soon as you thought the glorious DDT would get it done, it was a near fall. Second attempt, off the ropes, of course, Claymore kick. I was really upset off the finish. It would be good if like Ziggler, that obviously has a grudge to set with a longtime rival out of McIntyre, that they would do like a better finish, especially off Retribution, especially off Orton winning the world title, or at least trying to screw over McIntyre of what he did back at Clash of Champions. That there would be a lot more against McIntyre retaining his world title, but I understand trying to ultra hard push him into being the top strong warrior, Scottish world champion, and they just have him like lose to a guy that we haven't seen in months. That's been obviously a fan favorite to win the world title and probably quite some time since being on NXT. So that's a bit scuffed. It ends up with freaking Metal Gear Solid Randy Orton, the Viper Snake, Orton coming around masquerading as a janitor so he could sneak into where the legends were playing poker, come in with night vision goggles and a steel chair, and assault them in a blackout like attack. I don't know if I could describe it as dumb, overly overly booked up to the tier to make this overly personal. It'll be like the old tag Christian that I knew for like probably a few years, and Ric Flair that could die off like stubbing his toe, and yeah, that's practically it. Hey, that's how I felt in the matter. Other than that, this was a really mediocre show. There was two decent matches in especially up in the main event. The Hurt Business should not be losing to lower card jobbers, especially if they lose on pay per view consistently. The Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose debut was like scuffed and sloppy, and I just feel like you should just keep them on SmackDown until the draft and until further notice, or at least keep teasing up to Mandy Rose being on Raw, even though you have a draft in probably under a month. That's just my opinion on the matter. Other than that, I'm keeping it short. Raw gets a 4 out of 10. Other than that, other than that, uh, yeah, this is worse than the last week's Raw. I'm joking, every Raw gets worse. But other than that, that's it from me. Thanks for watching the DST show. I understand it's a bit of a longer review, but I'm a bit on the up and up after Clash of Champions over Extreme Rules, SummerSlam being a bit complete bore. Other than that, that's it for me.